Here we are. Let's get it started. Hey. All
Hey, what's
right.
up?
Hey. This is Transduction Signal on DubLab Radio. I'm your host, Trovarsi. Join me each month. We'll be having we'll have a featured guest. They will share a live performance with all of you. We'll have a short breakdown of their setup. We'll talk about their music and what's happening in their lives. And this month, my special guest is ALX-106. He's a producer, live performer. He's the face of eurorack manufacturer WMD. Some of you know him as that, but he's also a multi-instrumentalist, and we'll get more into that about his background. He's a member of Transduction Signal. He's based in Denver, and yeah, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is great. I know we play music together and do all these things together, but I want to have this conversation and also share it because you're so low key, but you are so talented and do so much that this is like a no brainer. I needed to have you on here. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Um, so before we, get into all the nitty gritty, talking about your background and all the questions that I have for you, you have a live performance for us that you wanted to share that I wanted to share with everyone here. So let me play that for everyone. Do you have anything you want to say or add about it before I do that, or do you want to
Yeah,
just get?
sure. I recorded this last night, but this is like basically a set that I had been practicing for a show that I played last Saturday at the Black Box in Denver with Richard Devine. Um, and so this is like basically like the first 20 minutes of the set list. So it's basically what I had prepared and cut down to the time that was allowed or allotted, and just tried to um, kind of push through things a little bit quicker than I probably would have done in a real live set, um, just in order to try and to push as much stuff out in the time that was allotted. But yeah, it was a fun set, and I'm excited for everybody to hear it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear it because I knew you were working on it, and obviously it happened in Denver, and I'm in Los Angeles area, so I'm super stoked to hear it and share it. So, all right, let's I'll mute up, and here we go. Wow. That's all I'm going to say. Like,
Thank you.
man, you're on mute.
I'm not muted.
Oh, I think it's my headphones. Sorry. Whoops. Um, yeah, no, I don't. It was phenomenal. Like, I have so many questions, but
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me do that. That was fun.
yeah, no, truly, like it was amazing. Like the transitions, all of it. It was just smooth. The musicality, the layers, all of it. Um, yeah, no, and thank you for sharing it here because it was awesome. I'm definitely gonna go back and listen to this again for sure. Um, so yeah, wow. Okay. I'm speechless. Anyway, let's get into the questions because I know we have a we only have a little bit of time, so let's get right into it. Do you want to kind of walk us through just a little bit of your setup, just in what was happening there, just how you were creating the layers and some of those lead voices that were
Yeah, for
amazing?
sure. Yeah, so it's a hybrid setup between Ableton and Eurorack, and then I'm using some guitar pedals for vocals. So basically, I kind of DJ between two um, two methods of playing. One is Ableton with the guitar pedal vocals thing, and with that one, I'm kind of playing back stems and then affecting them in the Eurorack, and then singing over the top through two delay pedals. So one creates the wash, and then the other one is what I use to loop the wash and try and make like a really cool unsynchronized texture over the top of everything that's in key because I just sang some notes that are relatively in key. And then, so I'm just kind of singing over those tracks, and then I mix over to the Eurorack, and then that's where I've got um, more of like a fully live setup where I'm doing like controlling all the drums and all of the voices in real time, and that's like I've got an 8-channel drum sampler and then another sampler that I'm using to do the like chords, and I'm basically like controlling like the filter timbres and different things inside of the Eurorack in order to create the the secondary sound or the sound of like on that rig. So I kind of go back between the two rigs.
Got it. Okay, and so what was what was that bell like sound? Was that the ARP
So the
2600?
ARP is just bass when the computer's playing. So it's just a bass line when the computer's playing. So it's a really deep, long bass tones. That's the ARP 2600. The M from Korg, which is really cool. But then the bell sounds like like throughout the sound, like throughout like the beginning of the set, or like what kind of like when are you talking
Well,
about?
like distinctly towards the end, there was definitely some bells. You were doing like a major D tune, which was so sick. The
Oh
way you just
yeah,
kind
so
of used
that's
that to
that's actually
transition, like
two of the WMD Legion oscillators, and that's like
okay,
an FM voice between the two, between the oscillators. So one is modulating the other one, and basically like towards the end, creating that really crazy bell sound. Like that's kind of like the lead sound with no FM throughout the whole performance, and at the end, I go into more of a sequence that's like a little bit more dissonant, and
hmm
that's when I just turn up the FMM out all the way, and then I also have frequency modulation, um, audio rate frequency modulation on the filter that's going through too. So it's like 2 bits of like very metallic sounding things. So that's where that's all coming from.
got it.
And,
Okay,
and then I just have an offset like fader that I can just push forward, and that does the tuning drop. So I can just that's in another pitch control input that just allows me to basically do the same thing as you would do on a mod wheel with a keyboard, just bend the pitch down.
okay, okay. Yeah, it sounded amazing. Like all the different layers and yeah, yeah. And I just want to say, if anyone has any questions, please just drop them in the chat. I'll be sure to read them out and get those answered for you. Um, so, okay, let's first talk about before we get into your background. And just for those who may not know the story, but you had a recent moniker change. And so, for those of you who don't know ALX-106, he was previously monikered as Nasty Nachos. And so, why the change, and what's the meaning behind the ALX-106? I know, but I'd like to share with everyone else who doesn't know.
I mean, I just felt like it was time to do something just different and just kind of step into this new vision that I had, and it was just trying to take things a little bit more seriously. I feel like the Nasty Nachos name, by itself is just a little bit silly, and that's fun, but I never really had like a direction for it. I just I put out a pop song, but then when I put out like a pop album EP, and then when I'd go play live, I'd go play techno, and I would never play anything from the EP. And then I put out a funny song, like a joke song, and I just felt like my whole vibe was kind of all over the place, and it was really confusing for me because I didn't know like what shows I wanted to get booked on. I didn't know like what kind of imagery I wanted to be associated with. I just had a very big lack of vision, and so I've been searching for that for years. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest parts of the artist struggle, is finding like what kind of music do you want to make, what do you want to, what kind of vision do you have for the imagery that's associated with that music. And so I kind of dove back into like what got me into electronic music when I was in high school, and like what kind of artists were around when I was 13 in middle school and just figuring this out, and it was like DJ Shadow and DJ Spooky and just like Fatboy Slim, and like these kind of people were like my gateway in, and so I looked around my room and I saw the Juno 106, which is my favorite synthesizer, and I was like, I should just call myself ALX-106, like just put my name instead of Juno or something, figure something out. And so then I like did it on I like wrote it out, as you do, to make sure it looks cool, and it didn't look cool. So then I took the E out and it looked cooler. And
definitely looks cool.
And so that's pretty much it. And then that gave me the vision for all of the imagery, because now I have like I have something to base the imagery off, which is this like synthesizer. So for my artwork, I've been like very heavy into using like the gray, the cream white, and the like red and blue that are like associated with the panel of the synthesizer, because it's just so classic and beautiful to me. So that's kind of where it's at. And I feel like right now I'm like really being just like true to myself as far as like what kind of music I'm making. And I have like a few rules, but like for the most part, I can just like the only rules are basically like I'm making electronic music, it's like, so I'm making like ambient, down tempo, and house music, and a little bit of techno, like, but those are kind of like the walls, so I'm like not gonna put out pop music under this name, and things like that. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
So you feel then now, like with this moniker, it helped you sort of define that path, and do you feel that then, like with
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like so much more myself when I see my name on the bill. I'm like proud of it, and it's just something I'm like really like excited about. And like explaining it's ALX with a hyphen and a 106 is like, I don't know, I'm fine with doing that, the difficulty of explaining the name, versus like just being like, yeah, no, Nasty Nachos, yes, it is Nasty Nachos, and like it was that name was a joke. And then I like, I'm a sensitive person, and people would make a joke out of it, and then I'd get like, I'd get not necessarily offended, but it kind of bummed me out, like people would come up to me and be like, are you Freaky Taco, and stuff like that, and just like make fun of the name and all of that. And I just decided that I wanted to be, just make something a little bit more serious, and take myself a little bit more serious and my music a little bit more serious.
Nice. Okay, so wait, I have a question for you. Actually, there's a question. Let me just kind of pop it up there. So how much of your eurorack set is improvised versus planned / sequenced?
Well, in this set, like pretty much everything's 100% planned. So like I go in waves, and I go in like I have like phases of really wanting to improvise everything, and then like also like really wanting to like have it be in like absolute control of everything. And so like what I played today, like the Eurorack portion and everything was all pretty much planned out. Like as far as the transitions go, that's all improvised. You know, the structure is a loose structure. I don't have any sort of structure that I play and then, you know, like get mad at myself if I don't stick to or anything like that. But for the most part, like the samples are set, the patterns are set, and I am recreating those and just playing those on the fly, and then controlling filters and just kind of seeing where it can go. But for the most part, in this set, for sure, like it's pretty much all planned.
All planned. Well, it sounded fantastic. I've also heard and played with you before with your improvised sets, and those sound great too. But there's it's just different ways to approach, right? Different sounds.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, this was like this show is a bigger show for me, and the club that it's at, you know, is in the big room, so it's a larger capacity, has a really nice function one sound system, and the way they have it set up, it's like it's, you know, it's a bass music venue most for, you know, like that's their biggest style of music that they do, so that, you know, the room is just dialed in. But how they have it set up is it's more of a rock venue like looking place than it is like a club looking place, you know. So like when you
Right.
go in there, like you're ready to go see a show. Like you know, seeing a performance is just as comfortable as like seeing a DJ. Whereas like at a lot of clubs, you know, it's like it's a performance can kind of be lost. You know, it's more about just like the vibe and the dance party. And so I like took that as like permission to create something that I felt was a very like appropriate style of music that was, you know, went all over the place but represented me, while also kind of like throwing out some weird like IDM noisy stuff to like pay homage to Richard and that crowd, and play some stuff that I know that people would dig. But yeah, it was like, and then also like fitting into an hour, you know, and just like giving myself like enough material to like be safe to play the full hour and not like worry about anything.
Got it. Nice. Well, yeah. Again, I can't tell you enough. It sounded so good.
Thank you.
So you mentioned like DJ Spooky and things like that. Just how did you actually get into music? I know. Talk about like you used to play in bands.
Yeah, I
Kind of give
mean,
us like a bridge. I know it's a lot, a mouthful, but like just
it's
like
so
an
much,
abridge.
but
I know.
I come from a musical family. My dad plays harmonica, and he plays like jazz harmonica, and he's played that as long as I've known, and he's honestly a really good musician. And my mom was really into music, and, you know, like was the like Sunday school teacher and stuff like that. So it was just kind of all the way all around. And then I had two older brothers, and so like I was very influenced by them. And so the oldest brother played bass, the middle brother played guitar, and so like what makes sense for me to play to finish the band, I'm going to play drums. And then throughout my life, I've kind of always just played that role. Like I finish the band. You need a bass player, I'll play the bass. You need a guitar player, I'll play the guitar. Which led me to collect a bunch of instruments and then get into recording, because then it was like, oh, I want to be able to write songs and like cover everybody's parts so I can bring demos and do that. So I got into recording, and then in college I played a friend's Korg monopoly that I was in a band with, and I was the drummer, but I would play that through a delay pedal while everybody else tuned. And I would literally just turn the resonance all the way up and just make like noises with delay. But it was like, that was it for me. It was just like the first time I touched that thing. I mean, for a friend
You
to
were
have
in.
Molly is pretty crazy, but I was just in. That was it. And so then I started making electronic music in college, and I started out doing this weird noise pop thing with a Roland 707 drum machine and a Moog MG1 synthesizer, and I basically would loop those with loop pedals, and then save the loops. And then when I'd go play live, I would basically play the loops back like an Ableton set, but just off of loop pedals. And then I would sing through guitar pedals and just like make feedback loops and make a bunch of crazy noise on top of it. And that was like my shtick. I really enjoyed like, at the time, like Holy Fuck was my favorite band. But I love the songwriting of Starfucker. I love bands with fuck in their name, apparently.
Yeah.
But you know, I was really into those bands. And so like and then like, you know, A Place to Bury Strangers, these really noisy, heavy things, but getting into dance music, starting to push it into dance music. And so I've always tried to keep that attitude while I've been like getting more and more into traditional like house and those styles of music, like trying to keep a little bit of that punk rock DIY vibe around. And that's where like the vocal loops come in. Like that's where I love to do that. When I have the opportunity to, I try and bring them out.
Very cool. I mean, I definitely can tell when I listen to all the music that you've released over the years, even under the other moniker and up till now, even playing with you, that it's very apparent that not only do you play other instruments, but that you really listen to other music and create other music. It really shows in all of your music. You know what I mean? Like, I think that being able to enjoy other genres of music and also be influenced by them and making them, it just adds that extra layer, extra depth, I guess, to your music, and it really shows, I think.
Totally.
There's a question. I just kind of want to circle back. There's somebody asking about your sequencing, so I'll let you kind of check that. So it's a way of sequencing the rack all the way through the set with part being mixed in and out. Are there separate sequences being stopped and started? I think you sort of touched on that a little bit, but just...
Yeah, there's definitely different sequences. So like I'm using the Metron sequencer in the eurorack, and I'm using the just Ableton to play back stems in the other setup. But in the eurorack, like that's one of the reasons why I'm using the two, is that while I'm playing on the computer, I can go and load up like a whole new sample selection on all of my samplers, and then load up a new memory slot on Metron, which is my sequencer for the whole thing. And so I can do that while we're listening to something else. So there's no, you know, sudden transitions, no hard clicks, pops, anything like that. I can do all of that while the faders are down and we're on the other rig. And so, yeah, I'm definitely like loading up new sequences. I think we played, I think it was 2 from each, like 2 sequences on each rig.
Okay. Nice. So, okay, so I want to actually kind of touch on the fact that go back to what you're talking about with playing in bands, kind of fast forward, recording, into synths. And now, when did you get into Eurorack? And just 2 compound question, were you DJing before you got into Eurorack, or was it, which came before the other? And
yeah, so no, I started getting into Eurorack right around like 2012, and I had DJ'd, but I wouldn't call myself a DJ yet by any means. I was like, at that point, I was learning how to DJ. I was learning what different styles of dance music meant, but I was still just playing stuff like, you know, all over the place, and without intention, you know, like just playing any track that I could. But I would say I kind of started doing both simultaneously, but I was making like what I would call dance music with drum machines and loop pedals and stuff, like for probably 3 or 4 years before I got into Eurorack. And then when I got into Eurorack, I got to like, I worked at WMD. That's like kind of my entry point. I borrowed some stuff from friends that were awesome to let me borrow stuff. And then I bought a couple things and broke them right away because I plugged them in backwards, and, you know, that whole thing. But at WMD, we had this really big demo case that had some drums in it. And that was like, you know, no drum sequencer, just like I was using the sequential switch matrix and its expander to sequence drums. But like as soon as I saw that was like even remotely available, like of a possibility, I was like, this is what we have to do. Like, we need to be working towards pushing this stuff into a smaller form factor so we can get it into a suitcase and play like full on performances with it. Because for me,
like
like
a live, like you're
live,
starting to gear towards that live performance approach.
trying to gear towards that. And like for me, like playing live, you know, was like taking this huge 4-foot by 2-foot pedal board that weighed 100 pounds and like 3 backpacks and a synth to shows, you know. And I had that vision like right then. It was just like, oh man, like a eurorack, like a 12U case is a suitcase. Like this is what I want to do, you know. This is where I want it to go. And not only like, you know, we weren't there quite yet as far as like the eurorack industry, but I'm really happy that we're there now, because like that was just like, as soon as I had that idea, it was like, man, this is where it's at. Like being able to have everything in a briefcase, patched up, ready to go. Like, you know, that's like the dream.
Nice. So let's see. I think there was another question in the chat. I kind of want to circle back, and I think it was about the assimilator. It was
Yeah, I see that. Just
you see that?
yeah,
Drums
someone's
versus
asking
chords and
how my
samples.
drums and my chord samples are set up in the assimilator.
I'm sorry. Before you answer that, because I don't want to break your train of thought about. I kind of want to still stay on the music scene, and so now, and just kind of touch on that, because I just looked at the time and I want to make sure that.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So just with the scene then. So you were DJing, now you're into Eurorack, and do you feel that once you started DJing, once you started getting into Eurorack, did you move away from DJing, and did you feel that you had that grasp of that's now where the direction that you wanted to go, more live performance over DJing? Or
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say I've ever been a DJ.
Okay.
So like for me, I was always in live bands, and as soon as I got into Eurorack, I was like, dude, I don't have to take everybody's gear to the show. I can do it alone, you know. Like not only like can I do it alone, but like just the sheer amount of gear. Like I'm the guy, I've always been the guy with the van, the guy with the practice space, the guy with the drums, the amps. So it's like that turns into like, hey, we have a show tonight, Alex, can you just pack everything into the van, you know? And like
Right.
that happened so much that like my back is just like over it. And so for me, like it was more of a move away from playing in bands. And so in DJing, like what we did in DJing, like I was in a touring band for a long time called Rose Quartz, and we would do DJ sets, you know, as the band to promote the band. But I wouldn't ever say I've like really been a club DJ. And like the most like I've done that now has been like kind of in conjunction with getting into Eurorack, of like being just like, oh, I want to get on this show and they want a DJ on the show. I'll go play that. I'll go DJ it, you know?
Right.
But yeah, like for me, it was more of it was the same as DJing. It was more of getting away from being in bands and just like a way to shrink down the amount of gear, you know. Like with DJing, the appeal is you got a USB stick, and with this, it's like you got a briefcase, but you're in control the whole time.
Nice. And how do you feel like, okay, so now being in the Denver scene, how do you feel that how it accepts or doesn't accept live artists or live electronic artists? Like, what is that? Yeah. What's your take on that, or what's your?
I mean, I think it's kind of a touchy thing, and it just really depends on like the night, really. Like, you know, it's not necessarily the club or the promoter or anything like that. It's more just about the night and what's appropriate. You know, I've gotten some cool shows as a live artist, and but then, you know, it's like I've also gotten some shows like as a live artist where everybody else is DJing, and it's like maybe that's not the most appropriate thing for me to do in that like situation. So I'd say it's growing right now. You know, like in Denver, we have a lot of people like pushing the idea of like Eurorack and hardware performances, and like doing shows like based around that like whole thing. As far as like integrating with like a club night that has a bunch of DJs and integrating the modular, that's definitely a little bit harder to sell. But I also don't know how appropriate that is.
Is it like a space
depending on
thing,
your
or they
style.
just don't
Yeah, especially a
understand?
space thing and style. It's like, are you gonna, like making sure that the artist comes in and still provides the same service that a DJ is going to provide. Like walking into a club and like being a part of an established club night. You need to have like a established sound and be have your set be appropriate to that. And it's just like that's kind of hard to control even with just DJs. Now throw in live performers into that. It's kind of risky. So
Right. Do you feel then that when you okay, here's a compound question. Do you feel that when you are creating or your sets or getting ready to play a live set, that that's something that weighs on you? Is that something that you think about in terms of pleasing the crowd and being able to deliver, especially if you're playing in between a DJ? And the other part of the question is then, would be your advice to somebody who wanted to start playing out in those types of venues? I mean, outside of, the modular synth scene where it's a little more accepting all genres, but more club or warehouse focused.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly still don't have the most experience with breaking in. Like, I think that, you and I, the shows that we have done have been a little bit more on that vein. The shows that I've played, like, I feel like I've been a little bit more like accepted in the like venue scene, like I was saying, like with Black Box, and I got to play Meow Wolf with Jacques Greene, and that was a cool experience because, like again, like that's a big stage. But that one, I kind of felt a little bit more freedom because, to do like a performance because of the way the venue feels. And I knew that Jacques kind of would be everywhere. But like when it comes to like playing the club nights and things like that, like and preparing for it, like, it's always like there's always a little bit of stress caused by thinking about whether or not people are going to dig it. And just like fitting in and stuff. And like my advice is just, like everything, just practice, practice, practice. And if you think it's dope, it probably is. Because, like it's like you've got good taste and that's really what matters.
Mm-hmm.
So, just really like practicing and just like, how often are you like stepping back from the rig and being like, dude, this is so cool. Because that's the best part. And, like in making this set, I felt like that so many times and just like I got really excited about it. And like it's not just house music, obviously that first song is super weird, and then goes into a kind of housey thing. I like, I designed that to fit and to kind of just like introduce myself in a way that I thought would be fitting for the people I'd be introducing myself to. And I think that, it's like you definitely want to like think about who's going to be there, what you want to say, and all of that. I think that's pretty much it.
Right. And like thinking about meaning like who's playing the night with you, before you, what kind of vibe they're
And like
potentially going to be bringing, even as DJs.
Totally. And which group of your homies is going to show up regardless of whether or not you were playing, because that kind of helps too. It's like then it's like, oh, this group of homies likes this style of sound, so I'm going to go and do that, do a little bit more of that maybe. But also like I think that with everything, it's like take it all with a grain of salt, and like also just like the biggest thing is have fun and people will be into it. Like if you're playing a club, I think one of the things you and I talk about a lot that people worry about is sounding as polished or as like loud and just like as to be competitive with CDJs, and like with master tracks. And I do think like you should have a compressor on the end of the chain. I do think like you should turn your kick drum up super loud and have your kick drum be louder than everything else, in a tasteful manner. But I think your stuff should be like aggressive for the sound system and mixed to the sound system that you're going to be playing on. But if your sound is raw, like that's cool. Cause like you could also just play a bunch of raw tracks on CDJs and it would go off. It's all about just like having a good time.
Totally. I agree with you on all of that. It's definitely a challenge, but yeah.
But yeah, it's
So
like that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to break into that, and I think that by playing more of these like rock style shows, it's like, you know, rock venue style shows, it's like it's just, you know, pushing us towards it, you know.
yes, exactly, and it's great. I'm glad we're having this conversation because I see a lot of people in the chat that we know that are, you know, they're a part of our synth community and they're supporting, and some of them have even have been in the club scene as well, playing live, and are, I'm sure, experiencing all the things that you have just mentioned. We're kind of approaching the top of the hour. I wanted to ask if you have any new releases or anything that you want to kind of talk about. I know, yeah, like anything coming up, or you just what you doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I'm playing a show in Denver on January 13th with a bunch of the modular synth homies. That's going to be really fun. I'm doing a back-to-back set with Love Cosmic Love, who I throw the Patched Out party with. So we're going to do a full hour back-to-back. So that should be really fun. And that's at a really cool rock venue that I just like cut my teeth at when I was young. It's called the High Dive, and I'm excited for that. And then, yeah, I do 2 monthly parties in Denver. One is on second Tuesdays, and that's called Freak Boutique, and that is at Fort Greene Bar, and that is a like monthly open mic for modular synth performers. I don't play every time. That one's really all about getting people on the stage and getting comfortable with playing live with hardware and with modular synths, and just giving people like a gateway to get there. And then my other party is called Patched Out, and that is on third Fridays at a venue called the Black Box in Denver. And that one is definitely, that one's more like a club night centered, or you know, based on the idea of a DJ club night. Everybody plays for a full hour, seamless transitions, but it's all hardware. So it's not modular specific by any means.
Nice.
It's just hardware.
Yeah, I played that one with you.
Yes, exactly.
August we played together, right? Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
so fun.
Yes, and the Freak Boutique one, just to let everyone know that. What happened? What'd you
We
say?
played 2 hours.
Oh yeah, we did play 2 hours. It was
Yeah.
amazing. And just to let everyone know that's listening, that not only Freak Boutique, if you're not in Denver, please tune into their YouTube channel and watch those performances. If you're not local, it's definitely worth popping over there and getting that experience of not only listening but seeing all the different performers and what they're bringing in. And don't you also do like a quick little breakdown?
Yeah, so it's a 15-minute set and then a 5-minute Q&A with each performer, so like everybody gets to learn something. And the whole idea with that is that everybody in person, it kind of breaks the ice between the audience and the performer. So if you want to go ask some questions, hopefully it makes them, you know, reminds you that they're human and that it's okay for you to go talk to them.
Awesome. Well, Alex, it's great. I'm happy that you came on to be as a guest. I know we have so much more to talk about. I definitely need to have you come back and do like some kind of a part 2 thing, because we have to talk about Transduction Signal Collective, the projects and things that we've been working on. But it's truly a pleasure to have you here, and I can't wait for us to hang out more too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For those of you tuning in, thank you. This is Trovarsi on I'm your host of Transduction Signal. Thank you for listening here on DubLab Radio. All right, folks. Let's keep it going. I know there's a bunch of technical questions in there, and just so people kind of know like what's happening. I just started my show on DubLab Radio. I'm super pumped and happy about it. And it's a 1-hour opportunity, so I really wanted to make sure I got those questions in for the listeners on the radio. And now I want to just at least continue and circle back, because I know there were some questions in the chat about some tech questions. So let's get into the tech side of stuff. So they were talking about compressors. I saw a sidechain with the hammer. Let me back. And I even heard that I just saw that Eli wanted to know your whole beard conditioning thing. So let's get into all of that.
Well,
all right, wait. Let's first start with.
As much as possible.
Wait, I think you answered Paul's question.
I don't think I
about
did. We kept
did you? Oh
talking
no,
about
no, you didn't. I said we would circle back.
I
All
was
right,
gonna
so let's talk
start, and
about it.
then yeah.
Assimilator, chords and drums.
Yeah, so it's super simple. So it's the Metron does is a sequencer, and then one assimilator is 8 voices, kick, 2 kicks, or like 2 sample slots that I usually use for kick. And those go onto one channel. Open, close hi-hat, and then the rest is just kind of whatever works. So like usually a clap, a ride cymbal, and then maybe like a couple other funky things. Like for one of the tracks, I was using like an 8 slot I was using the zones, and I was using 8 different stick hits. So like drumsticks pitched differently. Those were the different samples, and then round robining it. So it kind of has like this kind of pitter patter sound.
Got it.
And then, so that's like the drums. And then the other one is basically set up as a 4-voice stereo sampler. So I have one, so Metron, again, controlling it. Volterra is going to that, controlling pitch. And then it's 3 different stereo outputs go into their own muscle and then their own overseer. And so they can be sidechained independently, and then they go into their own overseer independently, and then they go into a axis module. And then how the axis is, how I'm using that is that's basically a crossfader. So there's, and so I only plug in one side to that. So that means that there's, if you're crossfading to nothing, you're going to use it like a VCA.
Okay.
And then I have it to the point where I can turn the knob up, and then you'll hear everything going like an offset. You'll hear all of the stuff going through it. So I can run loops and stuff through it, like big chord loops. And then if I close that knob down, now it's reacting to CV, and it's just like super rhythmic. But then if I turn it to the right, then it opens that up, and it's just basically like another layer kind of sound to it.
Very cool.
And then for some of the songs, there's like, for the most part, like it's just chord samples and like in different rhythms, like maybe 2 chord samples. And then the third stereo channel will be a like a lead. And for those 2 songs, I actually like recorded those leads just straight into a simulator. So I was probably playing the Juno 106 through the Empress Reverb for or delay or something, going into that, and then I just sample that and then play it back at the same tempo. So like if I'm going to play a lead that's in the same, that has to be locked to the tempo, I just play it at the same tempo and just run gate high for as long as the sample is. So that's how I'm like doing those leads.
All right, Honey Smack.
What's up?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for tuning in here. So he wants to know if you can do Euclidean stuff on the Metron.
No, I mean, there's not really a way to do that. The best way to do it is to do something similar, is to just like put down, a certain amount of steps, change the step length, and then use nudge to nudge it around. That's like the closest thing. As far as like that being a feature, I don't know if that's something that we can implement. I mean, at this point, we can't really do much more than what we've already said we're going to do.
And Mystic Circuits. Do you do anything to keep everything in the same key, or are you just doing samples to avoid having to deal with that?
Yeah, so everything is tuned to where, like, when my sequencer says it's C, and then everything is written on the, like, everything I write on the modular, I actually write it on the modular. So it's like each song is its own memory slot in Metron, and so that's how that would be in key. And then as far as like writing something on the fly, if I want it to be in key, then that's just as much as like knowing that everything is C when it says it's C, or know that it's that note when it says it's that note. The Legion oscillators have a tune lock, and so I can actually lock those.
Oh, nice.
And then when I turn the system on, they're still locked and they're still in tune. So that's been really great. But yeah, that is one of the reasons why I did use like single cycle samples as oscillators for a long time. And the reason I did that was so they would just, always be in tune.
I have a couple of those going on in my assimilator right now too, just for that reason, just the whole tuning.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like before the show, like with I'm using the 2600, and like before the show, like when I got to the black box, like my faders were all over the place, and I had to like, basically recreate like the preset before I played, and then I had to tune each oscillator like with the tuner again, and but for the most part, I don't really have to do that because yeah, I use samples, and then like with the Legion oscillators, they pretty much are good. And then I use a Crater for bass. I don't think I mentioned that. I've been using a kick drum sample, and then I've been using the Crater kick drum as the bass. And as far as someone said, pitch knob paranoia. As far as that goes, I just took the knob off of that one, and it has stayed in tune. I haven't had to tune it like at all. Even moving places, patching up and leaving and coming back. I haven't had to tune that at all. But if I did, it would just, I just run it into the tuner. And that's another kind of nice thing about using Ableton when I do use it. I hardly ever do use it, but for this one, like for this set, it just made total sense. But that's a nice thing about using Ableton is because like you've got a tuner at all times.
Yeah, I agree. I've always been back and forth, like taking out, modules and then using single cycle, the waveforms, just the whole tuning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's something everybody goes through, and you decide how much you love a module, pretty quick when you show up to a show and it's either in tune or not.
Right. Or that time we played and then I looked over at you when we just started and I was like, I forgot to tune.
Yeah. There was a really funny time in our very first performance where you were like, it's G. And I was like, that's definitely not G.
Having the tune in the headphones can make you a little frantic and nervous. For me personally anyway, but
yeah, no, I think it was the assimilator thing where you were using single cycle samples from
and I forgot
those like Adventure Kid waveforms, and you didn't know that those tuned to D instead of C.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was
such
totally
a funny thing. It's just like, come on, man. Yeah.
Does anybody have any more questions? Any questions really? Any tech questions or anything before we wrap it? I just want to thank everyone too for tuning in. This is great.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I mean, as far as also tuning goes, Eli said, he's had a tune on the dance floor before, and like even in this performance, if you listen to it again, like when I was doing the detune thing, that's going into the exponential FM on the Legion, which is really hard to dial like to be in tune when I'm detuning it. So like for the first 3 or 4 times I did it, it didn't sound good, and then I like took it out, tuned it in my headphones, and then did it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just sometimes got to do it, and hopefully you can do it right.
Yeah. I've always I'm on the yeah. It's hard though because like using the single cycle waveforms, they actually sound really good, and especially if you patch them right, you can really get some really good sounds out of it. Then sometimes there's just those modules that you just want to leave in your case, like how you're saying, like, and just deal with it. But
yeah, I mean, there's just some that are just that good, right? And like, I mean, that's how I feel about Crater. It's like it's not the easiest thing to tune because there isn't a fine tune knob, but like once it's in tune, it stays in tune. So it's like, and it's just a sick bass, It's like it's basically a triangle wave with a pitch envelope, and it's 8 HP. It just makes sense to use as that for smooth sounding basses,
Okay, wait. Oh, here. There's one more question. Least fave and favorite module.
Oh man, that's tough. So like I don't know, my favorite module is probably Metron. I think that it's just like I being able to help design it from the ground up definitely helps. But like, I mean, to me, that module changed my life like very, very much. Like that module, as well as the performance mixer, changed everything for me as far as how I perform and where my confidence levels at playing a live show. I mean, as soon as I started using the first prototype of Metron 4 years or however long ago it was like, this is it. This is like, this makes the most sense. And when we designed it, like, like when I was talking about it, I didn't even think it would have memory, and it's like the point that we're at now with like the Volterras and being able to save stuff is just crazy. Like I always thought it was just going to be like a gate sequencer that was like a Dopever sequencer that when you turned it off, it was just done. But it had the, look ahead sequencing, which is like the beautiful thing about it is like you're playing something. If you have an idea, you can go do that and just make it on the fly while something else is playing. And so, for me, that feature alone was just like so huge in the way that I create and the way that I perform, that it just has to be my absolute favorite.
Your least now. Can you?
Least favorite module. I'm not going to throw it.
I dare you? No.
I don't really. I mean, I don't think that's appropriate for me to answer that question, to be completely honest, because I think every module is pretty good. And
yeah, because something that you might jive with, like work.
One under the bus, and I don't need to do that.
Wait, say it again. What? Sorry.
I feel like I just be like throwing someone under the bus. Like everybody in this industry makes really cool stuff, and just because I'm like either don't gel with it or whatever, like that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's mostly like whether you gel with something or not. There was Dean. I saw your question. What do I leave in the case? I have two right now in the case. The BIA, which that tends to actually stay tuned, so that one's not too much trouble. The one that I leave in my case that can be really touchy, like if I bump the pitch knob on it, is the Domino and that's like my 303 sound, and I love the way it sounds, and so I put a red knob on it, and
yeah,
I try to just avoid it at all costs. But
that's the one thing about using the 2600 that's funny, is that like all of the faders are the exact same and look the same and are spaced out pretty much the same. So it's so easy to just like hit one of the pitch faders instead of the filter, which is like the only thing I touch on it.
Yeah. Well, Eli, I've bumped the BIA pitch knob, or that's where it falls out of tune.
Yeah,
It stays tuned until I accidentally grab the wrong knob, and then.
Does that not have a tune, like a tune lock?
No.
That's my least favorite module. Just kidding. No, I mean, I think like that's the beauty of digital stuff, and like I feel like one of the noise engineering things was one of the first things I saw that had that, but like just being able to just stop it from being able to bump it is so huge.
Yeah. So any other last questions before we call it, we wrap it? I just want to again thank everyone for being here. Yeah, Bill, I see that you love the Domino too. That's awesome. Thanks again, Alex, for being here. I appreciate it. Can't wait to see you. I'll see you
tomorrow.
In a couple of days, right? Or tomorrow. Oh yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. If you have time, then tomorrow is the time.
Yeah. Are you coming out tomorrow night?
I'm gonna see if I can. We just gotta see family stuff. Yeah, awesome. Honey Smack was asking what's next for WMD, or for me, except for after WMD, and I don't know yet. I'm just making as much music as possible, y'all. That's really the only goal right now, is to just make as much music as possible.
Nice. That's a good goal to have.
Yep.
All right. Well, and then if anyone's in the LA area, Alex is going to be here. We have the LA Synth Expo. We're doing a SoCal Synth Society takeover. There's performances on January 21st, 22nd. It just sign up. There's an open call. The link is in the SoCal Synth Society IG bio. There's still slots available, and you'll be here for that, kind of hosting that. We have a special show that we haven't announced yet that you're going to be hosting over at, I can say the venue, Gold Diggers, but yeah, there's more to announce on that. That Saturday night, January 21st, and then you and I get to play with a pretty sick lineup, I think. It's you and I playing with Date Night, Ricky Tinez, and then First Name Brooks and Sean Cruda are DJing. But Ricky Tinez live set, you and I playing together live set, Date Night live set. So it's going to be just a nice housey night, which I think is
I'm so stoked.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for
the
it.
lineup of that dreams are made of, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like it's at a super cool club. I mean, it's like talk about like, you know, just like playing eurorack in like the DJ's situation and, you know, figuring it out.
Yeah, it's gonna be so vibey. I can't wait. Yeah, Honeyspack, you need to come here. Like, let us know what can we do. Like, and if you're planning or what. Definitely, we definitely need you over here to play some sets over here. I'm sure Denver would love to have you. LA for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. On that note, you guys, thank you all for being here. See you next month, and happy holidays, happy new year. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks everybody. We'll see y'all later. Peace.
Peace.